Hey, buddy.
Raw.
Hey, man, that's a sweet heavy metal happy hour t-shirt. Where'd you pick that up?
Thanks, dude. I got it at the Toxic Radio shop.
Toxic Radio has a shop?
Yeah, dude. It's in the app or online at toxicradio.net.
That is sweet.
Yeah, and I also got a rockin' Toxic Radio hoodie and a Red Band Underground shirt. Dude, I'm gonna look so rockin' at the party tomorrow.
Well, I think you look pretty now.
Oh, wait, what?
The Toxic Radio shop is the place to get all your Toxic Radio gear. Shirts, hoodies, stickers. Find it at toxicradio.net or on the app. Don't buy it safe. Buy it toxic. Hey, where you going, man? Like listening to Toxic Radio?
Goddamn right.
Well, don't forget, this is the 21st century. Join us in the social media world. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pornhub.
Pornhub?
Nah, just kidding. Or am I? Toxic Radio. Get infected.
Welcome to Week 15, Wire to Wire. I am your host, Gene Walzak, and coming from us virtually, we're all virtual this week. I got the man, the myth, the legend, Scholastic Shally. What's happening, Bill? How you feeling today?
Not too bad. What's up, bud?
And also coming from us virtually, I got College Cottrell still hanging in there. Mr. 80%, Cleveland's own, rocking that Cavs jersey this week. It seemed I got my Browns jersey on. We're extra Cleveland this week. We're extra Cleveland. We got an action-packed show today. We're obviously going to talk NFL. NFL is going to be a huge part of the show. Conference Championship Week. After Conference Championship Week, we're going to talk about the Eagles head coaching situation and who we'd like them to hire, who you think they should hire. We have some NBA, some NHL, and, of course, the notorious Conor McGregor as the big UFC card that's happening this weekend. I'm ready. Let's rock and roll. Let's get started early. So what do you guys think about what happened and what played out? What was your favorite game from divisional week? And, let's get your thoughts on what happened this past week. Shally, start us off, buddy.
I think with what the game meant and, end of an era type thing, I think Tampa Bay, New Orleans is probably the most memorable game for me. I think it was the best game out of the four, probably, competitive-wise. It's tough to watch Drew Brees run off the field for the last time. I mean, anybody who's watching football for the last 15 years has grown up watching that guy play and win a lot of football games. So, for me, it was definitely that game. You saw, all the video afterwards, Brady on the field with Drew and his wife and his kids. I mean, I think it was kind of cool. It was a really cool way to end the playoff weekend. So I would go with that game for sure.
Couldn't agree more. I love that game. I texted you guys in our group chat. I had a really weird feeling maybe an hour before that game that Tampa Bay was going to win that game. And they did. So I kind of switched what my thought process was just leading up to the game and reading more and more. I just didn't get it. I just felt it. And Tampa Bay winning that game. Cottrell, what was your game that kind of stood out to you?
I mean, of course, for me, it had to be the Cleveland and Kansas City game. Aside from it just being a game that came down to the wire, I mean, there were so many important things that happened in that game. Like Patrick Mahomes and his injury, it looked really bad on the field. And I immediately thought that it was some sort of concussion or some head injury just because of the way he looked and how he wobbled when he was standing up. And, the Chiefs, to their credit, they still performed. They still got the job done even without their star quarterback. And I got to give them a lot of credit for that. Andy Reid, the guts to go for it on that 4th and 1. And even got to give credit to Chad Henne for the run that he had on 3rd and long. So for me, it was definitely that game. It was a heartbreaker, especially being a Cleveland fan. I wanted to see Baker Mayfield get a shot to go out and win that game. But that game for me was the one that stuck out for me. And it'll be interesting to see how the Chiefs move forward, if they'll get Patrick Mahomes back. I saw that he was supposed to be a part of practice a little bit today. He was technically going to be listed as a DNP or a limited participation, but we'll see how much that he can actually play and if he's going to be the starter moving forward.
Well, speaking of that game, obviously we did our T-shirt giveaway on the website. I felt like that game was going exactly the way that it should have went, and then the Patrick Mahomes situation happened. At that point, it was a half a point game. It was like, I think it was 19-10 when Mahomes got hurt. They just went for it on a fourth down. They got it. The Chiefs were driving, and after that play, I knew that it was going to be a very rough game. 8 minutes left in the third quarter, 9-point game. I don't know if Kansas City's getting out of this game. I even texted you guys. I'm like, this is going to be a wild finish. I actually thought it was a knee injury until I looked at his eyes afterwards. I'm like, damn. Like when he wobbled, I thought it was his foot because he had issues with his heel the entire game. And I also thought it could have been a knee getting caught up because I didn't see his head hit it. And if you watch the replay, his head didn't hit. So I think it was maybe the blood cut off on his neck that might have gave him that concussion, but he definitely looked drunk. More and more of those replays you look at, Mahomes just didn't look himself. Obviously didn't come back into the game. I was shocked as anyone. So Cottrell, let me ask you a question. What do you take away from that game? Do you take away from that game that your Cleveland Browns were just 5 points away from beating the defending Super Bowl champions? Or do you look at that as like a missed opportunity because you had a backup quarterback in for the last quarter and a half, almost 2 quarters?
It's kind of like both for me, honestly. Because you have a situation where, you were essentially one possession away from being in the AFC Championship game and putting yourself in a position to compete for a Super Bowl potentially. And so it's disheartening, especially knowing the circumstances and that, like, knowing that Chad Henne was on the other side. And this is essentially, that's the easiest path you're probably going to see these next few years or so, is a team that has Chad Henne on the other side. But at the same time, though, going into the year, I definitely didn't have AFC Championship game expectations for this team. I thought they'd have a good team, and I thought they'd perform well, and I thought the playoffs was very attainable. But I was not expecting us to get to the AFC Championship this particular season, and especially with everything going on. I mean, we didn't have Kevin Stefanski for our first playoff game. Odell Beckham tore his ACL early on in the year. There's a lot of things that went on this year where I wasn't expecting this team to have as much success as they did. So it is disappointing, but at the same time that, in a sense, they overachieved just because, so many people counted that team out right after Odell got hurt. And, this is the first year with the coach. You didn't really get a true offseason to all be together and learn the playbook and everything. So for me, it is a missed opportunity, but at the same time, it gives me hope for the future.
Charlie, let me ask you a question real quick, because you watched that game, and obviously I was on the Kansas City side, and Cottrell being on the Cleveland side, and you're watching that game as a non-biased third party. Can I ask you a question, and just kind of, it's almost rewording the same question I asked Cottrell. If you were a Cleveland Browns fan, would you be more upset that they blew the opportunity, or would you be like, hey, we hung around with the best team in the NFL? And if Mahomes, my personal take was if Mahomes stays in the game, it turns into be a 16, maybe a 23-point win for the Chiefs, whereas it turned into a 5-point win with Henne. What do you think the difference would have been if Mahomes stayed in the game, and how would you take that game if you were a Cleveland Browns fan?
I think I was a Browns fan. I think it's a little bit of both, but I would lean towards, I'd probably be a little upset that they missed the opportunity. Like, listen, we watched, this happened to us, a couple of years ago with Wentz, in the early of the game, just getting hurt. Like, injuries are part of the game. I think, even up until that injury, I was a little bit surprised how Cleveland was playing. I thought they were going to play better. And to their credit, they found a way to stay in the game, and they had a couple drives, that they got points out of when they really needed it. But that game was there for the taking. It's, kind of what Cottrell said. It's not easy to win in the playoffs. You got to take all the opportunities you have in front of you and make the most out of them. I don't think anybody would have thought any less of them if they won the game, even without Patrick Mahomes playing. It's part of the game. So I would be a little bit disappointed. I mean, you got to find a way to win that game, in my opinion. Without their, the best player in the NFL not on the field, they had every opportunity to do it. I think some of their really good players let them down a little bit for some parts of the game. Nick Chubb was really bad until the last quarter or so. He had 3 or 4 drops that were, not hard catches out of the backfield that, 2 or 3 of them would have. The one screen I remember was on a 3rd down, which would have been a huge first down for them. And then you have the play at the goal line, which was a huge momentum swing. That was, Cleveland being right in the game versus Kansas City giving up no points and getting the ball back. I see
Audio brought up the audio just brought up the helmet. This is the 3rd person that brought it up. I'm going to give my take on it. I know you guys both disagree with me, and that's fine. That's no problem. Was it a helmet to helmet? If you watch the replay, obviously it's a helmet to helmet. It's a penalty. It shouldn't have been called, and it's not called in normal NFL games, especially for someone diving for the goal line. I think because of the fact that he dropped the ball and it rolled out of the end zone and it was a safety, that's gotten so much press, so much conversation, so much I think if it's not mentioned on the air, if they don't add Mike Pereira to come in and mention it on the air, I don't think it should have been called. And I think that the people that are complaining about that, like, you look at that play, that's fine. And I'll rebuttal with the best player in the world didn't play for a quarter and a half. You can't look at that play and say this was the reason we lost the game, because it's not.
You're not comparing apples to oranges there. You're comparing apples to oranges. You're comparing a missed penalty call versus an injury.
And it's nowhere near the missed penalty call.
If you want to go by the letter, if you go by the letter of the law, that is literally a textbook definition of what they do not want in the game.
And you can't. That
dude left his feet. The dude left his feet and initiated contact with the other player with the crown of his helmet. It is literally, by definition, textbook, the best example you're going to get of that penalty.
I disagree with you.
You can't say player safety.
Completely disagree with you.
And then only call it when you want to call it. And you saw it called in other games. And again, dude, you've seen it called on the offensive players this year, which they started cracking down on. When you're about to initiate contact with a defender, you can't put your helmet down. That can't be the first thing. I've seen it called on running backs this year. They missed the call. It's that point blank simple. It absolutely shouldn't have been a flag.
I completely disagree with you.
You can disagree. You're in the minority, though. I mean, national media across the board all agreed it was a penalty.
The problem I have with it is that you say, was it a helmet to helmet? Yes. That alone says that it should have been a penalty. That alone says penalty. You can't say that it's a. You can't say yes, by definition that's a penalty, but it shouldn't have been called. That doesn't make sense. That's like saying you see somebody holding on the outside. Was it a hold? Yeah, but they would have scored anyway, so they shouldn't have called it. Like, that's not how that works. Like, it was a penalty, clear cut, and they should have made the call on the field. Now, with that being said, though, my position on it is, I think Higgins should have held on to the ball. So if that's the argument that you wanna hold your head on, then I'm completely there with you.
Not just that.
It is a tough play for a defender to make, and they were going. I don't think he had any malicious intent with what he was trying to do. So
he made an amazing play, and I'm guaranteeing if he was in that situation again, he'd make it again.
It was a good play, but it was also an illegal play, and it should have been a penalty because it is against the rules.
Okay. You can call holding on every play, and like Brad Atkins said a minute ago, you could call that play on every time a running back hits the hole. The situation with that play is they were both diving for the end zone. They were both one player was diving to stop the player from getting in the end zone. The other player was diving for the end zone. If it's a clean helmet to helmet where he's diving at a player that's running across the middle or defensive receiver, I'm with that.
Gene, so was it a helmet to helmet? Was it a helmet to helmet hit?
Was it helmet to helmet?
Yes, of course it was. Yes.
Conversation over.
So you guys can just say done all you want. We can watch each game this Sunday and watch 15 to 20 helmet to helmet hits that aren't called on nonsense plays. It's every game. Every time a helmet hits a helmet, it's not called.
You hate the rule and it still be the rule. Like, that's perfectly okay.
And there's nothing in the rule for intent.
We're going to disagree with this. I wanted to bring it up because a couple people mentioned on the wire line, but at the end of the day, you can make that call could not have been made. And if it was made, there'd be a massive amount of people arguing on the other side the same way. And to add to that, it didn't change the course of the game. In my opinion, it didn't. I think the fact that Patrick Mahomes left that football game was way more of a gift than if you would have got that call. That's my 2 cents.
It wouldn't have been a gift to get that call. It would have been them following the rules.
Following the rules.
But
I don't know how you say like taking 7 or at least 6. You know what's going to happen with the extra point with the way the kickers have been. But how do you not say taking 6 points off the board isn't a game changing play?
Especially knowing
I said it doesn't change the outcome of the game.
What we knew, like, you know, essentially Pat Mahomes still goes out. You know, that doesn't change that aspect of it. So
yeah, they changed
at that point would be change. You know, trying to get points, playing from behind without their starting quarterback. Of course, it changed the dynamic of the game.
I disagree completely. And are you laughing at Brad's comment, Bill? Brad on the wire line said every play this happens. Linebackers, safety blitz, it's helmet-to-helmet collision.
I'm laughing at the fact that you think a touchdown in a playoff game isn't a game-changing play. And what Cottrell 100% said, them calling that penalty doesn't make Patrick Mahomes not get hurt. You keep comparing apples to oranges. It's not the same thing, dude. If they call that penalty, that doesn't mean Mahomes doesn't get hurt a half hour later. So yeah, now they need to go score points with Chad Henne, not convert a 4th and 1 to win the game. They got to go score a touchdown to win the game. That's totally different. That in itself, in definition, is changing the game. That's the whole point. That's why people are upset.
We've talked about this at length. We're going to agree to disagree on this. I completely disagree with your sentiment. I cannot wait till it happens 20 times in the Packers Tampa Bay game and doesn't get called because it's just regular plays. I'm going to text you guys every single time.
It happened in the Bucs game.
No, it didn't because it was a bad call. He didn't hit him in the head. He didn't.
And he got called.
Talking about the Bucs Saints game when they got called, but it was a wrong call. Bill, you were laughing at that call because it was a wrong call. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So it wasn't. It was called the wrong way.
And they picked it up. They didn't call it at all in the Chiefs game. That's the problem. If you want to call it and then look at it and be like, oh, we picked it up, we got it wrong, that's fine. Like I said, they didn't call it.
It's a difference to say you hate the rule, which is I'd be right there with you, but it's still the rule as is right now. It's still the rule nonetheless.
Okay, Bucs Packers this week. What do you guys think about the game? We're talking at a wall right now. I'm going to move past this. Bucs Packers this week. What do you guys think is going to happen? How do you guys think the game's going to go down? I'll go third on this one. Cottrell, why don't you start us off?
So I mean, before this week's slate of games happened, I would have been the one telling you that I think the Saints are the team to knock off the Packers. And then, you know, I saw in that Packers game, I'm like, man, you know, these Packers can do this against this Rams defense. Then I get, you know, Aaron Donald wasn't completely healthy in that game and he had a lot of snaps off the field. But, you know, that Packers offense looked great. And it wasn't even, I mean, Devontae Adams had his moments where he looked good and he won his matchup against Jalen Ramsey. But it was the other guys like Lazard and you had Valdez-Scantling and, you know, Aaron Jones. There's a running back by committee that game too. So that Packers team is going to be really hard to stop. But, I mean, if there's anybody that can do it, it's going to be, you know, Tom Brady and that Bucs team. That defense looked a lot better than I thought they would up against the Saints. They forced some turnovers. The issue, though, is that they won't be able to force those same kinds of turnovers against that Packers offense. Aaron Rodgers doesn't make those same mistakes. He's not hindered by the same injuries that Drew Brees is. So for me, I think the Packers are just going to be too much to handle offensively. And I mean, it's simple, but the Packers are just going to outscore, I think, that Bucs team. I could see that game ended up somewhere like 38-24 Packers. It just get away.
Scholastic Shalley, what do you think happens in that game? Give me a breakdown of it.
To kind of what Cottrell said, I think going into last week, I had a completely different take on what I think the game is going to be now. I think it's going to be a close game. I think we all took for granted it was going to be New Orleans, Green Bay. I mean, I think all three of us actually had that when we originally did this like a month and a half ago. I think there's a lot of ways for Tampa Bay to win that game. I'm not saying they're going to, but you know, we had that. Me and Gene, you know, we had that silly discussion of, you know, about, you know, how are people betting and doing this and doing that, and you know, it's this is just another example. Like, you bet against him in the postseason. I mean, you're at your own peril. I still think that Green Bay has a huge advantage. I think the biggest matchup of that game is going to be Tampa Bay's defensive line versus Green Bay's offensive line. If they can keep Aaron Jones, not going crazy, and they can get pressure on Rodgers, without having to blitz, I think it becomes a very interesting game then. I mean, those linebackers in that back end are pretty good. You saw the New Orleans game. They in theory won that game for Tampa Bay. And then you got to. I'm curious to see how Green Bay is going to match up with Tampa Bay. I mean, you're going to roll Godwin, Evans, Antonio Brown, and Gronk. I mean, you can't cover them all.
Well, you don't need to cover Gronk. He's definitely aged.
Yeah, I mean, he's
dropped. He just doesn't get to the ball. Did he have a catch? I think he had one catch in the entire divisional round.
The problem with Gronk, though, is that he could not have a catch all game, and then you throw him a 35-yarder, and he just is the big body that goes up and catches the ball and scores.
I think you're living in Gronk past.
He
was 3. You're talking about the drops. I mean, I would say 2 of the balls that Brady threw to him last week, they were more on Brady than they were on Gronk.
That's fair. They hit his hands though.
Yeah,
they hit you in the hands. What's the rule?
Yeah, I mean, when you're diving in your fingertips, I mean, yeah, sometimes you come down and sometimes you don't. But I mean, if you don't play devil's advocate to that, he's 3 inches away from having 2 touchdown catches.
That's fair.
Chris
Godwin has looked terrible in the playoffs, man. Chris Godwin has looked awful in the playoffs, and Antonio Brown is hurt. And I think that if anyone's going to match up against the Green Bay against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receivers, it's the Green Bay Packers cornerbacks. Like I've been saying all year, Jair Alexander is the most underrated cornerback in the league, and he's not underrated anymore because I think he was first team All Pro or second team All Pro.
He missed first team, but
second team All Pro. Jair Alexander and Kevin King are absolutely unbelievable. I think that the Packers roll just like I said they roll last week, and they beat the Rams comfy, and I was 100% spot on that game. They could have won by 21. They nailed the ball on the 7-yard line. To be perfectly clear with you, the Packers were by far the better team. I've been on the Packers for the last 7 weeks. I've had the Packers in the Super Bowl, and that doesn't change. I think the Packers win this game, and I think it could be a comfy victory. I don't think it's going to be as easy as it would be to beat the Rams. Beating Tom Brady in any type of playoff game in the snow is definitely very tough to do. But just every position on the football field, I feel like outside of just overall wide receivers, I think the advantage goes to the Green Bay Packers.
The one thing that kind of really gets me away from being aboard the Tampa Bay hype train, I guess, is the fact that, the offense really wasn't moving the ball well against the Saints. If it wasn't for the turnovers, that game is probably out of hand, honestly. The Saints
have a very good defense, though. Green Bay's defense is not as good as New Orleans.
They do. But at the same time, though, I don't think that it's going to be a game where I think Tampa's going to have to keep up with Green Bay, and I just don't see them being able to do that.
I completely agree with you. I don't think
it will be clear.
Yeah,
I would just say I think it's going to be lower scoring than people think it is, too.
Yeah, I think it'll be a little bit lower scoring than 38-24. If I had to pick the game, I would probably say somewhere closer on the area, 31-20. But that's still, it's right around that over-under number, but I think it goes a little under in the game. I think Green Bay's going to the Super Bowl, and depending on what happens this week in Chiefs versus Bills, which we'll get into in a minute, I think Green Bay's going to win the Super Bowl. It's 8 weeks ago, I told you Chiefs over Packers in a really, really close game. If I had to pick it right now, I'll get into it in a minute, though. I like the Packers. I think the Packers are the best overall team in football right now. And I think, I picked this game in Tampa. I picked the Bucs, and everyone laughed at me. I said the Bucs are going to win. They won that game 38-10 back in week 4. I'm going to reverse the fact that Green Bay is getting them in Lambeau in the cold, playing at their all-time high. And I think the biggest X factor in the game, as Bill touched on already, is Aaron Jones versus that Tampa Bay rush defense. And I think Aaron Jones is going to run wild. If you watch that Bucs Saints game, Alvin Kamara had 2 runs that were called back by huge penalties. Now, hey, listen, maybe he got those runs because of those holds. But I think Aaron Jones is going to break a big one in this game, and it might be like a 60, 70-yarder that might put the game out of distance. Any other comments on Buccaneers versus Packers?
No, I mean I think that's the more interesting game between the two, because I think there's matchups galore, which one favors one team, one favors the other team. I think that's going to be the better game, and then you factor in the weather. Who knows what it's going to be like by the time they kick? So
it's going to snow. It looks like 75% snow.
And that's what they're saying. So I mean that plays into it too. So I would say the good part about that is it's not going to affect either quarterback. They're both used to playing in it. So I do like that. I mean, if it does snow, it's not going to turn the game into a crap fest because you have some West Coast team there, or God forbid, like the Saints, people that don't like playing in it.
The one thing that I think could be a little interesting though is to see how those Tampa Bay skill players kind of run their routes, how they catch, because that's something that they're not used to. Because it's not like they play in the playoffs every year. Those
AB is.
I say it's not going to affect AB.
But Godwin and Mike Evans.
Godwin has looked terrible this playoffs. The last 3-4 weeks, he's looked awful. I mean, the guy's got glue for hands. In the last few weeks, he looks like that glue turned into brick.
Well, he broke his finger in 3 places earlier in the year. I mean, I'm sure it's affecting him at some degree. But I mean, he's dropping
better throughout the entire. Yeah, he's dropping some really big passes. He's looked better the entire year though after that broken finger, and it just seems like the last 3 weeks. We also haven't seen Chris Godwin in any big clutch games like he's been in the last few weeks, and you don't know how people are going to respond to adversity until they get there. Antonio Brown injury is the biggest thing that questions me. He didn't look himself. They didn't play him most of the second half. They ended up playing Scotty Miller. I feel like AB 100%. This game might be closer, and I agree with everything that you said in the breakdown, Bill, except that this would be the game of the week. I disagree. I think the best game this week is going to be the next game we're going to talk about. Chiefs, Buffalo Bills. Because nobody circles the wagon like the Buffalo Bills. And their defense really circled the wagon, shutting down Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens 17-3 in the snooze fest of the week. The Kansas City Chiefs got a lot of question marks this week. Is Patrick Mahomes going to come back and play? I think he is. It's trending towards that. What about a whole week without practice? We talk about Andy Reid with 2 weeks of preparation. What about a week where half the week he's not practicing with his star quarterback? How does that look? I know he has familiarity with that team. Last time we started off with Shally, or Control, let's start off with Shally. What do you think happens in Chiefs Buffalo Bills?
I mean, you already hit on it. I mean, the big question mark is Patrick Mahomes. I don't think there's a chance in hell that he doesn't get through concussion protocol. I mean, I don't know if it's trending toward he's not going to play. I mean, I don't know who they're going to pay, where they're going to leave an envelope of money. Like, I don't know what they're going to do, but there is no way in hell that guy doesn't play. Now, that being said, with his toe and everything else, I will say, even if he clears protocol, he is not 100%. He's not going to be 100%. You touched on it, in the intro, we were talking about NFL with his foot and everything else. That was, very glaringly, noticeably that it was affecting the way he was throwing the football. I'm sure they will shoot him up, and, it'll help with the pain and every other thing that they always do for these guys. But he's not going to be 100% either way. I don't think Buffalo could play against Kansas City the way they did against Baltimore. That defense, did figure out the running game, and I mean, it's the same story as last year with Lamar Jackson. You take certain things away, it leaves it's hard for him to beat a team throwing the ball,
especially when they're dropping in the zone.
Yeah, and he doesn't throw the ball well against zone. Patrick Mahomes, on the other hand, is going to destroy you if he has 4 seconds to throw the ball in the zone. They're going to have to find a way to, Tony Romo, Gene, you commented that on too in our group chat. When they started doing what Tony Romo said, that started making Mahomes a little uncomfortable. Buffalo has to find a way to get pressure on him and get the ball out of his hands without sacrificing 2 or 3 guys on the back end. With Hill and Hardman and all those guys, you can't give him 3 or 4 seconds and let those guys run around. They're just too fast. They're just going to get open. Same thing we've talked about all year. It's hard to cover that team. man-to-man or zone if you're giving him 4 seconds to throw the ball. It's just too much time. There's too much speed. And, the one other thing that I thought they did a really good job of explaining as well is the way they change up their route concepts. And they scheme to get people over, and Andy Reid's very good at it. So I'm sure he's going to have a game plan for them to go against zone. Buffalo's got to run the ball. I just don't think it's feasible to think you're going into Arrowhead and throwing the ball 60 times and winning that football game against that team. That's just too many throws. I would say Kansas City's secondary is great, but they, with Matthew on the back end, they have ball hawks. Those guys like to jump routes. And if they guess right 2 out of 60 times and they get interceptions, I mean that changes the flow of the game and probably changes the outcome of the game. So I think it's
the Buffalo. God, I'm sorry.
No, I mean I think Buffalo, kind of like Cleveland. I think Buffalo might need something, a thing or two to go their way and capitalize. I do think they have an offense more equipped to, go blow for blow with Kansas City than Cleveland does. But it's hard for me to really come up with a distinct way for them to win the game on Sunday.
If I'm Kansas City, I'm double teaming Stefan Diggs the entire football game, and I'm making somebody else on that Buffalo offense beat me. To be clear, you just were talking about the Kansas City secondary. And in my personal opinion, I think the better secondary lies with Buffalo. I think I think Buffalo. Well, you said they had a tremendous secondary, so I guess that Buffalo would be like another world. Kidding, but
no, I said they weren't good. I said they have ball hawks, though. I said, okay. Yeah. I mean, Buffalo's secondary is very good. It's the strength of their defense. But
that's what I think the matchup of the game is. Those Kansas City wide receivers and Travis Kelce versus that Buffalo secondary. Because I think that is what's going to determine how this game goes. If it's a high-scoring game, like I think it will be, I think this game just goes 38-34. I don't know what side. Who has the ball last? If Patrick Mahomes comes back and that game is as high-scoring as I think it will be, it's going to be a hell of a football game, and there's a reason they put it on the primetime second game. Now, if for whatever – because Buffalo is equipped to go against Kansas City. We were talking about how Cleveland was. I don't think Buffalo needs to run the ball. I think Josh Allen needs to throw the ball. The Buffalo Bills set a record, the only team in the playoffs ever to go an entire first quarter without running the ball once. It's absolutely insane. They didn't have their first rushing attempt until the second quarter. I don't think Buffalo needs to throw the ball. I think that they're going to run the ball. I think they need to throw the ball, and I think they need to score points. And I think they need to score them often. I think in order to beat Kansas City, you got to outscore them. And I don't mean that in the sense that, of course you have to outscore them, but I think you have to beat them at their own game and outscore them. You could limit possessions and slow down the game, but I don't think Buffalo is equipped to do that, and I don't think they should. Who do you guys think is going to win the game? Cottrell, give me your breakdown of the game.
So for me, I really feel like it's this. You guys said it best. It's going to be the battle of the Kansas City receivers and Travis Kelce against that Buffalo secondary. As good as that Buffalo defense is, though, and as good as that secondary is, for me, I'm going to side with that Kansas City team just because, the way Andy Reid is so creative with getting his players the ball. The motions, the jet sweeps, the fake motions. There's just so much that these Buffalo DBs are going to have to look out for. And I really feel like the speed is going to more so neutralize that Bills secondary just because, those guys like to play fast and they do have ball hawks. I love the guys they have on the back end. Essentially, you could stick Trey White on Tyreek Hill and, just have him shadow him the whole game. But, at the same time, you still –
No, you can't.
Sure you can.
No, you can't.
Sure you can.
You can have the shadow.
Trey White.
But you better double him over the top because Trey White's not sticking with him over the top.
Of course, you want help, but I'm just saying you can trust Trey White to limit if any matchup on the field, that's the one you want. You want Trey White. Trey White's your best corner, and you want him on the best receiver that they have.
I see. Let me just. I'll let you finish. I want to respond to that point though. The problem with putting a top corner on Tyreek Hill is you never know where he's going to be in the formation. They line him in the backfield. They line him in the slot. They moved him. He runs behind the quarterback. He fakes motion and goes the other way. The problem with manning Kansas City is their speed.
Of course.
So I think the way to be able to do that, and I'll let you finish in a minute, but the way to do that is the zone blitz and hope that Mahomes is confused by the situation and look for turnovers in order to tilt and not looking to stop. Like, you're going to let a couple big plays up and understand that, but looking for those turnovers with zone blitzing. But continue. I apologize.
I think the issue with zone blitzing, I think that can be effective, but the issue with that is Kansas City runs so many quick hitting plays, and it's these jet sweeps, and it's these, quick screens and everything like that. And the problem with that, you'd be very susceptible to the big play if you run it to the same side the play is going to. And the way that Andy Reid's offense is designed, I mean, you won't really know which way the play is really going until, you see the ball going a certain way and you got some linemen out in front. So I think that's the problem that you get into with zone blitzing. On the flip side, though, with the Kansas City defense and that Buffalo offense, I really think that Kansas City has the edge up front just because they have Frank Clark, they have Frank Clark and Chris Jones, manning the D line. So I think that's going to really give them an advantage on that. And they're in a situation where they can rush for and get home. Of course, you're going to want to bring extra people here and there just to, change up the look. But it's really helpful that you have 4 guys up front that can rush the passer, and you can have 7 guys in coverage if you want to, or even, 6 guys in coverage and you have a spy for Josh Allen. So I just feel like the Chiefs have more to work with defensively, and that's why they would have the advantage for me. So I'm leaning toward the Chiefs win in this one. But of course, it's going to be all dependent on how well Mahomes can look. As long as he's serviceable, I still give my advantage to the Chiefs.
Okay, so I want to respond to what you said and finish it. Back to the Chiefs offense versus the Buffalo defense. When I say zone blitz, I do mean they need to gamble. I do not mean they have to send 6, 7 people. I mean, Tony Romo put this out perfectly. Like, drop a D end in the coverage, drop someone out and send someone else. You have to disguise your blitzes, but you don't need to send 6 or 7. And, it's crazy. We look at this game and you think the more mobile quarterback in this game is going to be Josh Allen. Because going into it 2 weeks ago, you might not have thought that. And I think that sending different blitzes at Mahomes and make him try to understand where it's coming from creates a different dynamic for Buffalo. I think Buffalo can win this game. And I'm going to play the fence on this one. It's going to be a really good football game. I've predicted Chiefs versus Packers 8 weeks ago, whenever we did it. I still think it's going to be Chiefs versus Packers, but I think it's going to be a hell of a football game. I think that's the game that you got to look out for, and I can't wait to be sitting on a chair, maybe with a piece of pizza and a cold beer. Brought to you by, I'm kidding. But I can't wait to watch that football game. I think it's going to be the more entertaining game of the two. Any other comments?
Do you guys think there's any shot that Sean outcoaches Andy in that one?
No.
I would say no, because I don't. I mean, I think if Buffalo wins that game, I still don't think it's an out coaching thing. I do think if Buffalo wins that game, it is probably a higher scoring game, and it's just a fact that maybe Buffalo has the ball last, or they just score one more time. I don't think it's going to be a schematic, or he's going to pull some rabbit out of his hat and do something the whole game that Andy doesn't see coming. I don't see that. See,
my thing, though, with that is that I feel like if it's a game where it's this high-scoring game, I'm not going to say necessarily that means that McDermott outcoached Andy, but if it's a high-scoring game, that means McDermott had a lot of good plays in his arsenal, and, Kansas City was having a hard time figuring out what to do with it. So I think if it's a high-scoring game, I probably would lean that McDermott did outcoach Andy.
You have 2 top 5 offenses on both sides of the football, and I can understand your point. If Buffalo wasn't the number 1, I think them and Tennessee were very, very close with points per game offense, and the number 1 yards per game offense was the Chiefs. So those 2 football teams are going to put up yards. I just really think it depends on the team that gambles. Josh Allen's got to play out of his mind, but I think he will. I think you're going to get that from him. It's going to be a good football game. Let's move on to Pickem. Control, what would your 2 picks be this week if you gave any?
I mean, they're both 3-point games right now. I would just lean with who I think is going to win outright. So my 2 picks for the week are going to be the Green Bay Packers at -3 and the Kansas City Chiefs at -3.
I think, is that 2.5 now?
When I looked earlier, like right before the show, it was at 3 on FanDuel.
Okay.
But yeah, those are, I mean, it's a tough week. Those are going to be 2 great games.
I think
like
one game's tough.
I think both of them. I think the Packers game is going to be tough until Aaron Rodgers gets it out of hand early third quarter, kind of like how we saw in the Rams-Packers game. And then my second game, of course, has to be the Chiefs against the Bills. And I got a feeling that somehow, some way, Andy Reid, Pat Mahomes, and company are going to find a way to win that game by at least 4 points.
No over-unders? Nothing like that? You're not going there?
No, I'm going to keep it simple.
I like
keep
it.
it simple.
Shally, I'm so interested to hear.
I'll go the other way just to make it fun for the show. I'll go Tampa Bay +3, and then I'll go Kansas City -3. I do honestly. My gut instinct is I think Kansas City wins more comfortable than Green Bay does. So, assuming Mahomes plays, that's just there's my gut takes, and I think Tampa Bay is going to find a way to keep that game close. I think they have the horses to do it on the offense, and I think their defense is good enough to probably at least, maybe a couple times instead of Green Bay scoring touchdowns, get field goals out of them. And again, I do think Tampa Bay is going to be able to move the ball on Green Bay's defense. So I'll go with those for the hell of it.
I will say the problem for me though was that both games have an over/under and 53.5 and 51.5, and I feel like both those games it could easily be 2017, but it could also easily be 38-34. So I'm staying clear away from the over/unders.
I mean, across the board, they've been very low scoring in general this whole playoffs.
That was correct. I'm going to give you leans on everything. I'm going to give you my leans on over/unders, and I'll give you my picks. And I even got a prop pick for you. NFL, I've been really I got a lot for you today. I'm going the Packers comfy. I think the Packers are going to win the game. I think they're going to win it going away. I think it's going to be a 2-score game. I think that the Packers are going to the Super Bowl. I think they're a way better team. We can talk about all we want about Tom Brady. He didn't play well versus New Orleans. I get New Orleans got a very good defense, but I like the Packers in that game, and I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to move that ball. I think that the Packers are going to move the ball like the Saints did when the Saints played Tampa at Tampa. I think the big difference in that game, the reason Tampa had so many huge plays were because of Drew Brees' arm. They really had to throw that gadget play into Winston to get that big touchdown because it really looked like Brees couldn't throw the ball more than 30 yards. So I like the Packers, and I like them comfy. The second game I'm going to go with will be the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I would love to get that at 2.5. I would love to get that at 2.5. I can. I know it's been going back and forth. That's why I was asking you if it was a 2.5 now, because I wanted a 2.5 if I get it. If not, go money line. I think you're going to push at 3. I think it's going to be a very good game. I'll give you my leans. I'm going to lean over Chiefs Buffalo. I'm going to lean under Bucs versus Packers. I think that the Packers slow down the Tampa Bay offense. So I think that game will lean under. And then I'm going to give you a prop bet I love. I love this prop bet. I hate betting overs on the prop bet. I'm serious. If you go through prop bets, 70% of the overs miss. It's unbelievable. If you just bet the under on every prop bet, you'll win money. But I'm going to give you an over. As I say that, lead into a bad, but I'm going to give you an over. I think one of the overs is absolutely insane, and it's because Tampa Bay's rush defense is so good. They have Aaron Jones over/under at 57.5 rushing yards. I think Aaron Jones would have to get hurt in order not to hit that. I think he's going to break a big run, and I would be willing to throw a small that he could do it in one run. He might have 7 carries for 14 yards and then break a 60-yarder. But I like the Aaron Jones over 57.5 rushing yards for the game. That's my picks for this week. Any other comments that we want to make on the conference championship games before we move on to NFL coaching?
Nope.
All right, sounds good. Let's move on. NFL coaching, Philadelphia Eagles. They still haven't hired a head coach. It's been a week. I thought last week Josh McDaniels was all but locked up. I even posted that on Monday. I want to ask you a question. I'll ask both of you guys. Who do you think they should hire? And who do you think they will hire? It could be a different person. Who do you think they should hire? Who do you think they will hire? I'm going to go with my fellow Eagles fan on this one. Shally, give me yours.
And we talked about this a little bit pre-show. I think it's going to be McDaniels. I think, actually, I don't know what they're thinking. I don't think anybody does. They've interviewed everybody and their mother for this job. I'm waiting to get a call to Zoom in and talk to Howie Roseman next week for the job. I don't know, dude. I mean, you're hearing so many different things coming out of these interviews. You're hearing conflicting things. You're hearing, people want the job, but, Jeffrey Lurie's given Howie Roseman even more control now, and that's scaring people away. I have no idea what the hell they're doing. I think it's going to be Josh McDaniel, simply because I think it's the Carson factor. I think Phillip Rivers actually today retiring probably, pushes their hand with that a little bit, because those rumors are not going to go away now. They're just probably going to intensify. So I think they need to bring somebody in here that has obviously worked with, the best quarterback ever, and hope that they can get on the same page and come up, with a better offensive game plan for this team, and move forward. I don't know out of any of those other people that they haven't talked to yet. They haven't talked to Bieniemy yet. Dable publicly came out and said he doesn't want the job. He's not going to interview for it. So unless some dark horse guy comes out of nowhere that we don't see, which again is possible because they've talked to 15 people, I do think it's going to be McDaniel.
Okay, Cottrell, what are your thoughts?
So I feel like the person that you should hire is a guy like Kellen Moore. I get that he's a young guy, and he doesn't have like a true track record yet. But obviously, you guys probably don't like that, him being a Cowboys OC and everything. But I like what I see from his offense when he has everybody at his disposal. He still may be, 1 or 2 years away from being a legit candidate, but I think that he is what the NFL is gearing towards with the young offensive-minded coaches. And I think you guys need a offensive-minded coach to, help out with that Eagles offense. And then the direction I think that you guys actually go, I think you keep it in-house. And I feel like Deuce Staley is going to be the guy. It's a guy that the city essentially can get behind because he's, one of your own. And I feel like that's just the safe move to make. And you kind of essentially you save yourself a lot of headaches for Jeff Lurie, because, if you keep a guy like Deuce around, essentially you're probably going to have him just be this puppet for you. And, of course, Deuce is going to have some say in how certain things work. But I just feel like Deuce would be the guy to make the fans happy because, like I said, he's one of your own. But at the same time, it can also make Jeff happy because he knows like what he already has in house, and he knows what he can and can't, say to him and make him do in the whole process.
Deuce will be no puppet. Let me start there. That's not who he is. Deuce Staley is not a puppet. It's not who he's ever been. People in the locker room respect him a ton. Let me just start there. Let me follow up with your Kellen Moore point. Kellen Moore better not be the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. That'll be the thing that really bothers me. So you talk about the weapons that Dallas has. They have 3 stud wide receivers. They have a running back that they paid a ton of money. They have a quarterback that they're about to dump a ton of money in. And you're talking about how their offense looks. The Eagles don't have that.
Wait.
They don't have that.
I understand.
I was glad you said this because this is literally the exact point I was going to say.
I understand that, but at the same time, you have to with any offensive, like if say you hire Bieniemy, you can say the same thing about him. Like,
you're absolutely correct. That's not who I want to hire.
But I get that. But my issue is I hate taking away from coaches just because they have weapons. You can get weapons. Like
what
that's
Dallas won.
That's what you have free agency for. That's why you have a draft. You can acquire weapons. Just because you don't have weapons now doesn't mean that you
have you seen our drafts? Have you seen our drafts?
Fact. Listen, Cottrell, I know you're an outsider. Kellen Moore is not getting hired by the Eagles. I'm telling you.
I understand. That's why I said it's somebody who I think could help fix the offense. But I don't see it happening.
And I don't think it's going to be Deuce either, just because if they were going to go the Deuce route, they would have done it by now. I don't think they would have kept interviewing all these people if they were going to go with Deuce. If they were that blown away or they wanted to go that route, I think they would have ended this already. And the Gene's counterpoint, I couldn't have said it better. That's exactly what I was going to say when you started going over the Kellen Moore stuff. And, to some degree, that's McDaniel's forte. I mean, granted, he had Brady, but he really never had a lot of people to work with, and he got a lot out of that offense. So, I mean, if anybody's going to be able to come in here and figure it out, I mean, to me, it's him. I'm not saying Carson Wentz is Tom Brady before anybody goes wacko with that, but he's used to coaching a quarterback with not a lot of weapons around him. So, yeah, I mean, we don't draft well, and we have no money to sign free agents. So that whole Kellen Moore theory to me is negative.
But that shouldn't be like, look, as a Browns fan, I had that mindset. We don't draft well and everything, but I'm telling you, that has to be a mindset that goes out the window. You have to think that you're going to turn it around. I
guess my question is, what has Kellen Moore done with that great offense? They underachieve.
They looked really good for 4 weeks with Dak Prescott.
Yeah, they underachieve. Like, what has he shown you that you would hand over the keys to your franchise?
To be fair, though, I got 2 points to that. To be fair, going into last year, what did Joe Judge do that make you think that he'd be a great head coach?
He's not a great head coach. They were 6-10.
6-10, but he's decent. If you guys went 6-10 with your rookie head coach,
6-10 ain't gonna work in this city, dude.
For 1 year, it's not gonna work.
No, we just went 4-11. No, so 6-10 next year is not gonna work.
We fired a Super Bowl winning coach 3 years after he made the playoffs all 3 years, and he went 4-11. We're like, we gotta fire him.
And you want to go 6-10?
Everyone disagrees. Well, I'm not gonna say everyone, but we know that there was more to that. There's more than just that, though.
I know. You're right.
Yeah, the guy we should have kept in Indianapolis.
That's an accurate statement, too. Here, I'll break this down for you as simple as I can, okay? The Eagles aren't hiring Kellen Moore. I'll just stop there.
Right.
The Eagles really have to decide what they want to do at the quarterback position before they hire a coach. I think what they're telling you is they want to keep – I think the fact that they fired Doug Peterson means to tell you that they want to keep Carson Wentz. If you want to keep Carson Wentz as your starting quarterback, you need to hire Josh McDaniels. If you hire Josh McDaniels, he's a quarterback guy. He's a guy that can fix Carson, and he also has the clout, because if the Jeff McClain reports are true, and, we shouldn't even call him Jeff. Jeff McClain did a good job at writing the report, but Joe Santoliquito had this perfectly 3 years ago. So that if those reports are true and Carson doesn't take to hard coaching or coaches that he doesn't respect, Josh McDaniels has the clout to come in here and say, listen, I've worked with Tom Brady. Like, you want to be like Tom Brady, or do you want to just continue arguing with head coaches? If they hire Deuce Staley, just know they're moving on from Carson. That's a team hire. That's a hire to build up the team chemistry. I just feel like that it's as simple as you can know what the Eagles are going to do at quarterback by who they hire as head coach. I want to make a point to what you said about all the interviews. Jeffrey Lurie loves to interview people. He does it every single time that we have a head. He loves interviewing people. He thinks he's getting information. He thinks he's cheating the system and picking like all of these people's brains. Jeffrey Lurie loves interviewing people. I can't stand it. I think it's so weird. And everybody that leaves Philadelphia, it's always, well, Todd Bowles had a good interview at Philadelphia. Everybody had a good interview. You're never going to report they had a bad interview. Jeffrey talks more than the people that he's interviewing. He's just talking, not even listening. and that's my 2 cents. I obviously I'm not in the interview room, but that's what it feels like when we're talking about this. So I feel like if you want to keep Carson, the answer is Josh. If you want to start Jalen and move on from Carson, and you're going to get the King's ransom from Indianapolis for Carson, then you hire Deuce. Any counterpoints to that before we move on?
My question for you, Gene, would be if you still don't believe in your drafting and in that whole process of everything, why would you want to trade Carson, which is essentially a known, for what could be the unknown wherever you send him for whatever draft pick?
I didn't say I didn't believe in the drafting anymore. I didn't believe in it going into this year.
Okay.
They made a hire in October. You know who I'm talking about. They made a hire in October who I think is going to be taking care of their draft going forward. I think Howie's going to be their cap guy. And please, I'm completely dropping his name right now.
John Dorsey.
John Dorsey is going to be their drafter. And they made that hire in October. It was very under the radar, very quiet, because Howie doesn't want people to know that he's got someone basically making the draft picks for him.
Right.
I think John Dorsey is going to be your guy picking.
I'm happy with John Dorsey. I don't think that's the way it's going to play out. I've read too many reports with this whole interview process that certain guys coming in wanted same personnel, and the answer was no. It's going to be Howie. It's going to be Howie, and I'll tell you, it's going to be Howie because even when Laurie's been asked about it, he hasn't even condemned him for his bad picks. He said we've been good on some and we've missed on some, even though you've missed on almost all of them.
I heard that interview. It was terrible. Oh, yeah. My eyes.
Again, dude, I agree. John Dorsey's a great person to have in the room. The final person that's going to have final say and is going to call in that name, it's going to be Howie Roseman. And for better or worse, dude, for as frustrated as all the Eagles fans are and all the change we wanted, Jeffrey Lurie's made his intentions very clear. He picked Doug, or he picked Howie over Doug. He's putting his eggs in those baskets. In that basket, he thinks Howie knows what he's doing. So the next couple of years are going to be interesting. They just, they cannot miss on that first draft pick.
I'm going to give you a very bold prediction. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to have a very good 2021 draft. And I don't think Howie Roseman's going to be making the picks.
I got a question for you guys, like super quick.
Yes, sir.
If
I love your questions.
If it was a choice between, have another, obviously you don't want to go into the year, hoping for a bad draft. But if it was a situation where you have another bad draft and you let Howie and Jeff pick the coach for this year and it's not necessarily the right fit, and then Howie gets fired in the upcoming offseason, and then you have another guy come in, would you prefer that guy bring in the right coach with him, or would you prefer to just roll with whoever Howie and Jeff decide to go with this year?
Are you saying if they have another bad draft?
Yeah, if Howie loses,
have another bad draft.
If Howie loses his job, like, would you prefer? Would you prefer them to pick the right coach this year, or the guy coming in? I would prefer them
to pick the right coach this year and have a better draft. If they pick the wrong coach or the right coach this year and have another terrible draft, Howie's going to get fired. The coach is going to get fired anyway. The GM's going to want to bring in their own guy. Right. I don't think they're going to have a bad draft this year. I actually believe in John Dorsey, and I think that's going to be the person making the picks. Charlie?
This is the this question, goes into exactly why we wanted them both fired. If you were going to fire Doug, fire Howie. You're this off-cycle thing now. So if you bring a coach in, good or bad, whatever, indifferent, and, we do have a bad draft, now you're bringing another GM. But now you got to bring a GM that's A-okay with Josh McDaniels for a couple of years, or until he's bad enough that you can fire him and he's going to bring in his own guy, or vice versa. That's why most of the times you see it's done at the same time. Or they hire the GM first if they're going to bring a new GM, and they hire the GM first, and then they do the coach search, because that GM GMs and coaches are linked. One always ends up taking the fall. It's a matter of who it is. I don't know how good of a draft they're going to have this year. Gene has way more faith in it than I do. I don't think they'll miss on their first pick, because it's almost almost idiot proof this year. Depending on what happens in front of them. Depending on what happens in front of them, it's almost idiot proof. Like it's almost impossible for Chase, Waddle, or Smith for one of them to be on the board. It's just something crazy would have to happen for one of them not to be there. So their first round pick is automatically going to be good, and the city's going to like it. All the fans are going to like it because of the debacle from last year. Rounds 2 through 7, I mean, I don't know what the hell we're going to do. I mean, nobody thought we were taking Jalen Hurts in the second round last year, so who knows? Again, I do like Dorsey being in the room. I don't think for 1 second if Dorsey thinks this is a great pick and Howie thinks it's another guy, we're taking Howie's guy. I promise you, because he's done it for the last 5
Johnny
years.
Bracero?
Yep.
What?
I want to give a shout out real quick to Dante Sell. He's been commenting all show, and I haven't really got a chance to comment. He said the Eagles need to take Patrick Surtain or Devontae Smith. So Dante's got a great podcast himself. Let me just shout him out. East Coast Gridiron, go for 2 podcasts. Give him a listen. He's very good at what he does. The guy's very knowledgeable. Hopefully one time we can have a little collaboration, have him call into the show, because I really appreciate your opinion, Dante. So thank you very much for everything that you've contributed. But to the point, I just, I guess we'll end up wait and see, and it'll be fun to talk about. That's it for NFL though. We're into the show. We got to get into NBA, and we have the Brooklyn Nets, who just lost by 12 points to your Cleveland Cavaliers tonight in double overtime, 147 to 135. Let's talk about Brooklyn and the 3-headed monster of Kyrie, James Harden, and Kevin Durant, and what you guys think it's going to be, because watching them play Milwaukee and kind of handling Milwaukee and Brooklyn without Kyrie, tonight was the first night with Kyrie, and it almost looked like James was a lot more passive.
I mean, he is. I mean, I'm looking at the box score right now. Durant took 25 shots. Kyrie took 28. Harden only had 14. This is what it's going to be every night. And again, this is what it boils down to me. Like, how many nights in a row is Harden going to be okay with that? I mean, you've Kyrie coming back from his hiatus and, Christopher Columbus search, and he comes right in off the bench and chucks up 28 shots and barely makes half of them. So, I don't know. I'm here with my popcorn. I'm ready for it. I think there's a lot of nights like tonight, they were down big right before we went on the air. And, I even said, I was like, they're going to make a run. And they were actually up. They were up 3 or 4 with like a minute to go. And Cleveland came back and tied the game. So they actually came all the way back and passed and were in the lead and gave it up in the last minute. They're going to have that gear that no other team has, which is scary. They in a close game, the last thing you want to do is be up 2 points, with 30 seconds to go, because they have three absolute guys that are absolute killers at the end of the game that can shoot and win the game for them. They're going to struggle defensively. I mean, let's not act like Cleveland Cavaliers are a juggernaut and they put up 147 tonight. James Harden doesn't play defense. Kyrie, it's not his favorite thing to do. And, Durant turns it on for spurts. I think it's going to be a mixed bag. I mean, I still think what I said earlier is going to be the case. I think we're going to be the 2 or 3 seed. And then you just see how those egos clash and how they coexist. It's going to be fun to watch. I think at the end it's going to be a shit show, but I do think it'll be fun to see once stuff starts going bad, what happens. I mean, it's easy for all 3 of them to get along if they're winning. If it starts, they hit like a 3 or 4 game losing streak, that's when I think it gets fun.
That's where the interesting part comes from, Bill, is I think if that team makes it to the playoffs and doesn't kill themselves, listen, they're the NBA champions if you play with 2 basketballs. They're the best team in basketball if you're playing with 2 basketballs. But the fact that those 3 have to share 1 ball, I think the biggest opportunity for them to really slip up is not in the playoffs. It's in the regular season and destroying their chemistry in the regular season with that 3 or 4 game losing streak that you spoke of. Here's where I differ a little bit. I think that the Brooklyn Nets will be in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Philadelphia 76ers. I think that's my Eastern Conference Finals now. And if that's the case and they're all playing together, those three are going to be really hard to beat in the NBA playoffs playing together. I'd almost have to favor them right now over the 76ers. That's kind of where I'm at. Toby's playing out of his mind. You were right about Toby this year, man. With Doc, he's played great. And I'll give credit where credit is due, Bill, because I was the biggest Toby hater in the world last year in the beginning of this year, and he's played very, very well recently with Doc. But I think that your argument this year is going to be, I don't know how you stop that team. And if you're playing them in a 7-game series, they can screw up a couple times, but they're going to be really good offensively.
I will tell you how to stop that team. You have to keep up on the scoreboard and then make them stop you. Like that's essentially what it's going to have to come down to. I mean, outside of Kevin Durant, they really don't have anybody on that team that's, I would even say, good on defense. I mean, James Harden, when he locks in, he can be a menace to deal with, but I mean, he's not scaring. Like if I have any premier guard, like he's not scaring anybody, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think that what we saw tonight, obviously this is going to be an anomaly from the Cavaliers team. Like Bill said, they're no juggernaut on offense. They do have young guys that can score. But I mean, I think this is obviously you're not going to score 147 points every single night.
Double overtime. It was six
exactly.
quarters. That kind of helps a little bit.
Exactly. But at the same time, though, I think that shows what this Brooklyn's Nets team is. Like they're not going to play defense. And I get that the score was higher because they went in double overtime, but still, like this is a team that is not going to play defense. We talked about it before the show. It's a team that's not that deep. I mean, really they have 2 players coming off their bench that are going to give you valuable minutes, and that's going to be Joe Harris and Landry Shamet, who didn't even play tonight. So it's the team that's not deep. And I think for me, what it's going to come down to is what they play like and what their bodies are going to be like come playoff time. I think even if they do go on some sort of losing streak and, their morale is low, they have so much talent on that team that they'll still be able to just turn it on whenever they want to, and they'll be able to beat teams just because they're simply more talented than them. I just think the problem lies, though, is that, like I said, this is a team that's not that deep. And, Kevin Durant's already coming off of, the Achilles injury. And then you got Kyrie, who knows whenever he could leave again. And then you got James Harden, who's clearly not, mentally strong and not the kind of guy that, you're just all in on, and that he's going to be all in once the time comes. I mean, we saw how he kind of exited Houston. So it's just a situation for me where I just really feel like teams aren't going to be afraid of this Brooklyn team. And even though they are that talented, what worries me is the will, and once it's time for them to get their hands dirty in the playoffs, are they going to dive deep and dig deep and beat these other Eastern Conference playoff teams?
That's a very fair statement, man.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing for me, Gene, is if that is the Eastern Conference Finals matchup, it's the chess game between Doc and Steve Nash. I mean, I think it's a huge edge for the Sixers. I don't think anybody's under any kind of misconception now. Like I don't know.
Joseph Jeffers just said an awesome line on the wire line. He said Brooklyn is the softest team in the NBA.
They absolutely are.
And mentally soft too, Joseph.
Yep.
Mentally soft. Like they are super mentally soft. Kevin Durant's has burner accounts on Twitter because he's worried about what fans are saying to him. Kyrie's crying every day, leaving the team and crying about the coach and crying about getting out of Cleveland and crying about the young players in Boston and crying about not having anybody to play with in Brooklyn and now crying about the new coach hire. They're mentally soft, but they're super talented. It's hard to ignore talent.
It would be very. I would love to see that 7-game series because I don't know what adjustments, if any, Nash can really make with that team, and I don't know if they're even going to listen to him if he does. I do think the 3 of them go out there and do what they want to do. They have no answer for JoJo whatsoever on that team, and I would love to see what Doc will come up defensively. I mean, it would be interesting to watch. I mean, it's it would be fun. I think there'll be a lot of trash talking in that series. And like you said, I mean, if the going gets tough, like let's not act like one of the three of them can't fold. If I had to bet on any of the three not, it would be Durant. But James will be flopping around like a flounder. I mean, Kyrie will be bitching like he always does, and I mean Durant will probably be yelling to one of the two of them. So
I will say the one problem for me too with that Nets team is that I think there's so many teams in the Eastern Conference that are actually built to. I mean, obviously you're not going to neutralize them, but the Bucs, they have a team with a lot of good wing defenders. Same thing with the Heat. Well, not a lot with the Heat, but I mean they have their fair share. They got Jimmy Butler, and then they got Bam to protect the rim. So like, I just really feel like there's teams in the East that are literally built to slow down what Brooklyn has going on.
I think the team that's built to slow down what Brooklyn's got going on is the city that you live in. It's Philly. Defensively, all right, so JoJo is a nightmare matchup for Brooklyn, obviously for Brooklyn defensively. But when the Sixers are playing defense, Ben Simmons is that length forward, point guard, whatever you want to call it, that can stick Kevin Durant. Matisse Thybulle is your defensive extraordinaire that can keep up with the quickness of Kyrie Irving. And Danny Green, if he can do anything still, it's defend. And he can defend James Harden without fouling and defending in the smart way.
Right.
I think that overall team matches up best with Brooklyn. But I think we're kidding ourselves.
Though.
What?
Losing a lot on the offensive end if you're putting that 5 out there, though.
100%. I agree with you. But I think that they're the team that can, if you're rotating them in and out and kind of putting the clamps on each one of them, not clamps, but to slow them down and give them a hard time. The fourth quarter, it's going to be a little bit harder for them to get their shot. All right, guys. We're running up against the clock. Obviously, we always do because we love these conversations and they're fun. We got a little puck going. NHL. Flyers are 3-1. And it's funny because the biggest takeaway I have so far, and Bill will probably correct me because he's big hockey guy.
If
the biggest takeaway I have so far,
then yes, I'm going to correct you, but go ahead.
The biggest takeaway I have so far is that at 3-1, the only thing that they haven't looked great at is goaltending outside of last night's shutout, which was not Carter Hart. Carter Hart, all 3 games he's played, he hasn't looked great. Am I incorrect there? Am I seeing something wrong?
He hasn't looked great. I would tell you, I mean, he's still 2-1 and he's only looked bad in 1 game. The first game, nobody on earth was saving any of those 3 shots. And he's made a couple huge, amazing saves already. Carter Hart's, again, he's not the worry of anybody that follows that team. They look good. They're the highest scoring team in the NHL right now. They've scored the most goals so far. They're the only really big, negative thing that's happened is Couturier getting hurt. They're still only saying 2 weeks. It's probably going to be closer to 3 by the time he practices and gets back on the ice. Should have Ghost back later this weekend, I believe, off the COVID protocol stuff. They look good. I mean, Elliott looked really good last night. Shut out 3-0 against Buffalo. Buffalo's not a good team, but it's promising. Again, I'll stay with what I said last week. If they're not in the Eastern Conference Finals, it's surprising to me.
Do you think the offensive success is sustainable?
Yeah, and it's for the reasons I said, especially when Coots is healthy. I mean, we have Raffle and Scott Laughton right now playing on the 4th line that for the last 3 years have been. I mean, there's been times Laughton's been on the top line with G and TK. There's our 4th line guys now. You don't need a 4th line to be a checking line like it used to be in the old NHL, where it was the guys that went out and just barreled into each other and got in fights. That's not what the NHL is anymore. You need a 4th line that can still play defensive and back check and and be that be those type of guys, which Laughton and Raffle are. But those guys can still score. They're both 15 goals a year guys. And then you have our top 3 lines that we can roll. They're all 3 of them are good on either end of the ice. It's a very deep team. It's a very good lineup. The more they play, the more you're going to see it.
You think Flyers Lightning Eastern Conference Finals?
Yeah, if I had to pick right now, yes.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay could
And
score.
if you had to
back
pick
to
the
West
Western
East.
Conference, would you go Colorado versus Las Vegas?
Yeah.
No
If I had
love
to
for
pick now, yeah.
Toronto.
Toronto's the dark horse. I mean, Tampa Bay or Philly, one of them's going to have to beat them to get there. It's a matter of where they're going to fall seeding wise on the bracket. I think those are the top three teams. Washington came out of the blocks real good. They were 2-0, and then they lost to a struggling Pittsburgh team 2 games in a row. Pittsburgh's looked terrible. That is the beginning of the end of what they're going to do. They're going to have to make decisions. They have too much money tied up in 3 guys, and they just don't have the talent around them with the cap and everything situations this year to make it work. Montreal's look sneaky good. They always do. They have Carey Price. Anytime you carry Price on the ice, you play good defense in front of them, score a couple goals, you got a shot. Vegas.
I got a hockey guy that's going to be calling in the show the next couple weeks to keep up with Bill, because Bill's knowledge right now is overwhelming, because I'm not a huge hockey guy. I'm a Flyers guy. So I'm going to have a couple guys calling this show and debate with you, because I know we got a lot of Puck fans out there. I just know the Flyers, and I'm trying to give you like a couple leads, but your knowledge of the sport is obviously
who you got
is awesome. Tom Campbell, probably.
Oh, I do. Tom Campbell's messaged me like we talked about hockey. I've told him the same thing. I told him to call in. I can't wait. He's probably another level above me. He's like he lives and breathes it. I love the Flyers. I keep up with the NHL. I have to follow a lot more other stuff, obviously. So he's a very knowledgeable guy. I'm looking forward to have him calling in and talking to us. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I talked to him about it this week. We have a couple good calls coming up. We got a couple beat writers that might be calling in next week and the following week. So we'll get that out on Facebook once everything's confirmed and going forward. But what we got to talk about right now is 10-16.
Well, before you get into that, I'm pretty close with locking up the other thing that we've talked about. I'm not going to say it yet because I don't want to jinx it, but I'm
confident in you, my friend.
A very fun
teasers coming.
A very fun NBA segment if I can get that guy to call in.
That'd be beautiful.
It would.
Let's get into the notorious one. Conor McGregor makes his comeback this week versus Dustin the Diamond Poirier. They fought, I think it was like 5 years ago. Conor destroyed him in the first round. It was not close. Dustin's obviously grown his game in the last 5 years when they fought. But I would like to know, that was really Conor's coming out party. Like, that was the fight where Conor really ran on the stream. If you remember that fight was like even money. Like, Dustin opened the favorite, and then Conor got a ton of money, kind of like Nurmagomedov's cousin did recently. But Conor got a ton of money last minute, and he dominated the fight, obviously, which is what we've turned into notorious Conor McGregor. Dustin's a tough dude, and Dante said he's mad underrated. He's got a win over Justin Gaethje on his belt. He's got a win over Eddie Alvarez on his belt. These are high-quality championship-level fighters. And, I mean, I guess you have to say it. Last 10 fights, he's given Khabib the best run for his money. He caught Khabib in that fight. My question would be to you guys is, how do you think the fight goes? And how long until Conor wins? Sorry, I'm kidding. But how do you guys think the fight goes?
Bill, you want to go? You're
I'll go Conor by attempted murder in the first round. I mean, it's gonna be,
you think it's gonna be that bad? You're giving Dustin no shot.
It's not. Listen, again, Dustin's a great striker, so I'm not gonna say there's no shot. Again, he hits hard enough. He catches Conor. Again, he can put anybody lights out, including Conor's. My big thing is this: he has to come forward to beat Conor. That plays right into Conor. What Conor does better than anybody on this planet, which is counter strike. Conor hits you with that left hand. It's a wrap. It's going to end a lot like the first time they fought. I think it's going to be it's going to be fun. I'll be excited as hell to watch it. I'll be shocked if it gets out of the first round.
It'll be a good fight. It's not a good fight then.
No, I mean, listen. Well, no, I disagree. Like, you're watching that fight for somebody to get rocked. Like, you're not watching that fight to go 5 rounds. I don't want that.
I want it to go 3 rounds. I want to see a war.
Nah. I want 90 night. I want 90 night.
Yeah, in the third.
I'll just step in and go here. But Bill, I agree with pretty much everything you said. It's going to be a tough fight for Dustin. Don't get me wrong. Dustin is great. Like I love Dustin as a fighter. It's just a fight that, like you said, it's going to play right into Conor's hands. And the last time we saw Conor in the octagon, he looked amazing. I mean, simply, like it's as simple as to put it, he looked amazing. That fight against Cowboy, I understand Cowboy isn't what he used to be, but the fact that Conor came in and he stuck to his game plan to a T, and there was no damage taken. And I mean, did Cerrone even get a strike on him? If he did, it was like 1 or 2. But
Cerrone's a notorious slow starter, Cottrell, and he's way past his prime.
Understood.
And he had
understood, but
that was a great.
That doesn't mean you take away from what Conor did.
No. And I like Conor. You guys are making me defend Dustin. You guys are just acting like Dustin's a layup. But God,
no, it's not a layup. It's not going to be a layup.
I think he's fighting one of the 3 guys on the planet that's just better than him. Yeah, that's all. That's what it's not. It's nothing against Dustin Poirier at all.
And I think for me, that's what it comes down to. It's just a situation where I feel like it's going to be a slugfest from the jump. And it's going to be a situation where, honestly, either way it goes, there's going to be a knockout that happens within the first 2 minutes. And for me, there's nothing that's telling me that it won't be Conor McGregor that gets the knockout. These guys are just going to be swinging so much, and they're going to have a lot of shots that connect. And with that being said, I'm going to have to roll with Conor because, precision beats power, and Conor has,
both.
He's got both.
Conor's unbelievable, and I think Conor wins the fight in the second or third round. I still think he wins the fight, so let me put that on record. I'm not here to say Conor McGregor is going to lose Saturday. I do not think he loses the fight. I do think it's a little bit premature to say that Dustin's going to get rocked in the first round, knocked out like that. I think that Dustin knows everything that happened the first time they fought. I don't think Dustin's going to walk in there like here's my chin. I think he'll stay away. I think there'll be a feeling out process in this fight. I think that Conor's got to be careful. And I'm not saying that Dustin is going to win the fight, but I disagree with Eric. Eric Rosenblum just popped in on the wire line. He said Dustin only wins.
Though, if I'm Dustin, I'd like that to even get into Conor's head. Maybe you come out and throw a couple punches and try to take him down. I mean, that to get anything. Listen, if Conor comes out and gets into a rhythm early, that's where I think it gets really ugly. Dustin also can't sit at length and try to pick apart Conor and dance around inside the out. He's never going to win a decision that way. He has to go beat Conor.
He's not winning a decision. Here's the way he's going to beat Conor if he does. I don't think he will. Just be clear. Put it on record. Don't think he will. But Dustin Poirier has one-hitter quitter knockout power. Dustin Poirier, and like I said this before when we were talking about the fight, is he has the ability to knock you out cold with one shot. He reminds me a lot of Matt Serra when he beat George St. Pierre. I don't think that's going to happen, but if you walk into the right Dustin Poirier punch, I don't care who you are. You're going to be seeing stars.
I'll go with you.
Dustin Poirier. God, I'm listening.
No, I'll go with you. Like on premise, he has that power. I don't think Conor's looking past him though. And GSP went in that fight training for 2 weeks, had a million things going on outside the octagon, and looked past him and got caught. I mean, Conor's not going to go in there. I just don't. I don't know. Again, it's a fight, so anything can happen under the sun. I said that in my opening remarks.
Dante said it perfectly. Dante said it perfectly on the wire line. I disagree. Dustin's not a grappler. He's not. But he'll have to outbox Conor and not get hit. If he goes past the second round, it's over for Conor. I don't agree with that part. I think Conor's proven that he can fight 5 rounds.
Yep.
Especially with the Nate Diaz fight. But Dustin is dangerous because Conor drops his hands. Johnny Bracero nailing that on the wire line.
But the problem with that though is that once he drops his hands and Dustin sees that, and he's going to try and push the action, and then he's going to get caught, and that's going to play in the Conor's hands. So like that's the one thing. Like I get that. You want to of course get your shots in, but if you get too close, like we've just seen it happen too many times with Conor McGregor.
Dustin
I'm the bold statement guy, and I make it very clear that I am all the time. And I'm telling you guys, it's just not as clear cut as you guys are making it.
No, I'm not. I don't think either one of us are saying that we don't think Dustin is talented and he couldn't win this fight. Like we absolutely do. But I think for me at least,
you guys both called it early first round knockout for Conor.
But Conor's knocked out, Jose Aldo in the first round, and Jose Aldo is one of the best to ever do it. So that's not an indictment on Dustin. It's just this stylistically, this matchup, I think it leans heavily in Conor's favor.
And anyone that talked to me last year, I told everybody, and I made a lot of money on it. I told everybody that would listen. I said, Conor's running in at 375 versus Donald Cerrone. You're probably not going to lay 375 to win $100. But if you want to bet the under, it's a no-brainer. Conor's going to knock him out in the first round versus when he fought Cowboy. I'm going to be as clear as I can say. I think that Dustin Poirier keeps up in this fight, and I think it's going to be a lot closer than you guys think it will be. I think Conor wins by second or third round knockout, but I definitely think he gets scathed. I definitely think he gets touched. That's my 2 cents on the fight. If you guys are right and Conor knocks him out in the first round, by all means, I wouldn't be that surprised that happens. But I think that you have to understand that Dustin has heard all the same things that you guys said. Conor's going to drop his hands, and you're going to walk in and just try to punch him. He's not going to walk. He's not dumb. He's going to walk in there and fight a smart fight and fight at distance and try to box Conor. And I don't think he's just going to get tattooed like anyone thinks he's going to get. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Conor eventually wins the fight, and I think he wins it in the second or third round, probably by like a TKO stoppage. No one-hit knockout, nothing like that.
Long as the fight goes like that, again, unless he's definitely like getting in, tagging Conor and getting out, which again, I don't see that happening on the regular. That plays into Conor's head too, or into Conor's, advantage. He's at some point, if there's no doubt in my mind that's a close fight, Conor's winning the decision, unless it's horribly obvious. I
don't think it goes to decision. I don't think there's any chance it goes to decision.
I don't either. And again, Poirier, especially for that weight class, he's a top 3 or 4 guy in the world. He's just fighting the guy who's probably number 2, and it is no dismissal of Dustin Poirier or anything like that. They both want to do the same thing, and I think Conor's just better at it.
I got a quick little tidbit that I just wanted to throw in. I know you guys saw what Dana White, said about his interview with Khabib, but I thought that was a lot of buildup for nothing. And I really feel like this fight itself should be for the interim belt. The fact that it wasn't deemed that way, I just thought that was kind of a missed opportunity for these guys.
I don't think Conor even cares about the belt anymore, Cottrell.
No,
I think he just wants to.
I disagree.
I think he just wants to fight big name fights. I think he wants to get into competitive fights, and I think him fighting Khabib a second time to try to avenge that loss, which he's been asking for, is the worst move he can make. I think what he needs to do, and this is what I was just about to talk about before we got into Hooker versus Chandler, which I think is going to be an amazing fight. I think the fight that I would love to see more than any in the world is him versus Masvidal at 170. I think that's the fight you need to make. I think that would be a hell of a shit-talking fight. I think Masvidal is quick, wiry, a great boxer. He's shown that versus Nate Diaz. I don't know how much money I could pay to make that fight happen, but it would be the funnest fight in the world to watch.
I would love to see that fight again. I wholeheartedly disagree with you about the belt not mattering. There's no doubt in my mind that if he wins this Poirier fight, he is getting on that microphone and he's calling out Khabib.
Yep.
And there's nothing else he wants in the world.
It has a lot more to do with avenging the loss and the disrespect between the two parties than it has to do with the belt.
But he lost he wants to avenge the loss, but he wants the belt back too. But it's also, he knows, and again, he's admitted this, he wasn't, and this isn't on Khabib, but he wasn't where he needed to be into that fight. Like, he didn't prepare the way he should have, and Khabib beat the balls off of him. He knows if he wants a second chance to prove that he can beat him, and do the camp and be focused and do the way he is right now.
I think it has way more to do, though, Bill. I think it has way more to do with the fact that exactly what you're saying, and not the belt. The fact that he doesn't want Khabib to be looked at as a greater fighter than him when everything's said and done. I don't think it has anything to do with the belt.
You can't say that, dude, because he went out of his way to win 2 belts. The belts matter to him. He doesn't like Khabib personally, and that is all of it, and it's the loss, and that's more of it. But you can't on the other hand say either that the belt doesn't matter to him. It absolutely matters to him.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you could, like, if it was a situation where Dana said, "All right, you guys can fight, but it's not for the belt," I feel like Conor wouldn't take the fight.
Yeah,
I disagree.
And I'll even go bolder. I don't think Khabib's done. I don't for 1 second believe that he is.
So he had just to be clear, Conor had the chance to fight for the belt versus when Eddie Alvarez beat up on Rafael Dos Anjos. He had a chance to fight Dos Anjos for the belt, and instead he chose to avenge his loss versus Nate Diaz. That was his choice. It was on the same weekend they fought. Just to be clear,
he's also come out and said because he's also come out because he said he didn't.
He's not a backup fighter.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not, and he's come out and said he's like, I'll kill Dos Anjos. He's like, I'd rather go fight Nate. And then he pretty much ended Eddie's career. So I mean, he did. I mean,
I wish he would have fought Eddie 7 years ago, but
I think he beats Poirier, and I've said it before. I think a focused Conor versus Khabib, I think Conor can beat him. So, I
want to see Conor versus Masvidal, and that's what I want to see. I don't really care to see Conor Khabib too.
I just don't know if Dana books that fight because it's a lose-lose for him. That's kind of like where as much praise as Dana White gets for making fights, and sometimes he does like to protect people. And if he books that fight, he's crushing one of them. And that's why I don't know if it happens. I could see if he beat Usman and had the belt, I think it's a different story. And I think Conor wants to stay at 155. So
no, he's fought at 170. We got to move on.
He's fought there. I think he wants to stay there. He wants to stay there. His whole camp was geared around getting him down there slow and getting him there where he can maintain and stay there and fight there because he wants to fight 3 times this year. I don't think he has any interest in fighting at 170 this year.
I will disagree there. We got to talk about Dan Hooker versus Michael Chandler real quick. Just give me your thoughts very quickly on the Hooker versus Chandler fight, Control.
It's going to be a good fight. It's probably in full. It's probably going to be the best fight on the card. I mean, I know you guys both like Chandler, but I probably lean Hooker in this one. Hooker's coming off of a loss to Dustin, and I feel like it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be a great fight, but I just lean Hooker in this one.
Just to be clear, I lean Chandler. I don't think that Hooker's got no chance in that fight. I just like Chandler. I lean him, but he has a habit of losing close decisions. He lost a few of them in Bellator, and I followed his career throughout. Chandler has a very bad habit of losing close decisions. I wouldn't bet this fight with my own money. Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of literally the same exact boat as you. I lean Chandler. I kind of want to see him win just to, it just opens up new matchups down the road for other people. A lot of people don't know who he is because he's not, he didn't come up in the UFC. He's, coming from Bellator and everything. Very good fighter, but again, Hooker's he's unorthodox. I mean, he can fight from both stances. He can lead with both hands. He could take an absolute beating. Again, I lean Chandler. I will not be surprised one iota if Hooker wins that fight. And I absolutely think it's a fight of the night. I think that's a slugfest. I think they're both beat the hell up and bloody when it's over. I think it's the best fight of the night.
I agree with you 100%. I just to follow up on that, if you don't know who Michael Chandler is, before Eddie Alvarez came to the UFC and won the UFC belt and went on an amazing win streak over Benson Henderson and the guy jumped off the cage. I forget his name. Anthony Pettis, and then Rafael Dos Anjos. Michael Chandler beat Eddie Alvarez once in Bellator, and then Eddie beat him in a rematch. It was a very, very close match. But I just want to be very clear. Michael Chandler is a very good fighter. Michael Chandler, Dan Hooker is going to be a great fight. I'll give you guys one betting advice for the card. Joanne Caldwell is not losing to Jessica Eye. I'm just let you be clear. It's a minus 125.
Gene loves his bet.
Joanne Caldwell is not losing to Jessica Eye. I'm just being clear there. It's not happening. Jessica Eye's not going to win that fight. I don't know how she wins the fight. She's not going to win by decision. The only way she can win the fight is by sub, and she's not a submission fighter. Period. Done. Do you guys have an already? You gotta be kidding me. I know it's been a really weird week. If you don't, it's not a problem.
I have like a little one, yeah.
So for me, I'm gonna roll with a story that just came out. It was about Tennessee, and apparently they were giving out their kids money in McDonald's bags, and these athletes that were coming to campus, they would get these McDonald's bags full of money, and it's just like, really? Like that's how we're doing this securely, and of course, it's crazy to see that Tennessee is in as much heat as they're in now. But I mean, if you're doing it that carelessly, that recruits are getting money in McDonald's bags, then you deserve to be caught. Like, who thought that was a good idea, and who decided McDonald's? Like, I really want to know what the thinking was there. And for that, Tennessee.
Come on, you got to be kidding me.
Jeremy Pruitt, I think he needs to get hired as the Eagles head coach. You know how he's going to outsmart the room and hire him. I'm kidding. Bill, give me yours.
Mine is this is more of a statement for the entire playoffs. This isn't cherry picking on the Kansas City Cleveland thing from this weekend. It's been the officiating in the playoffs. It's been bad. Naked eye, you watch the game and see missed call after missed call. The other thing I would say is, the NFL needs to stop being so picky with what you can and can't review. They hide behind this whole thing where they act like they care about the players. They don't. If you want to take certain things out of the game, then you need to be able to allow these refs to be able to look at these plays again. And to Gene's point, as fast as these guys move, that play at the goal line was bang, bang. It's very hard to see to the naked eye. But that being said, if you really care about the players like you say you do, then you want it out of the game completely, not just when the referees and umpires and side judges can actually see it. These guys are too good at athletes. They move too fast. They hit too hard. I don't care how good of a ref you are, how good your eyesight is. That stuff happens in less than a blink of an eye. You got to be able to give these guys a little bit of a chance to slow things down and look at it. Unless you really don't care about the players, which we know you don't, or you just let it go. So there's been some other couple blown calls with replay as well. The fumble in the Buffalo game comes to mind. I still don't know how the hell they got that wrong, and that almost changed that game. But NFL officiating in general has got to be better. Coming down to the conference championship games, you do not want to see a bad call or missed call, God forbid, change the outcome of a football game. So especially this late in the year. So for me, it's the NFL officials.
Come on, you got to be kidding me.
Mine's pretty simple. I'm giving you guys something that happened tonight. The Cleveland Cavaliers organization, I don't understand what you're doing here. And Control could argue with me all he wants, but Kyrie Irving begged and pleaded and cried like a baby to get away and probably cost you guys the second championship by being such a baby. Kyrie Irving got a tribute video from Cleveland tonight for his comeback to Cleveland. It's an absolute joke that he did it. I can't stand Kyrie, and it's probably part of the reason that I'm using this. But Cleveland Cavaliers, come on, man.
Come on, you got to be kidding me.
Guys, I want to spend a special shout out to two people at the end of the show. Mike Francolino, the reason that we're not in Toxic Studios right now is battling COVID. Yet he's still here helping us produce the call. So prayers up to Mike. He's feeling better today, which is great. But this disease has caught a lot of us right now, and I just want to make sure everybody understands how awesome a job that Mike does at Toxic Radio. So let me give him a shout out for that. And the second one I want to do is one of my best friends in the world, Nick Hurtado. His birthday is in an hour and 22 minutes. So let me wish Nick Hurtado a happy birthday. Hope he listens to this tomorrow, or Tiffany does. But either way, thank you guys very much for being fans of the show, ordering shirts and all that. Anybody have any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I don't have anything like that. You definitely take the cake with that one. But I will say I'm loving what I'm seeing from my Cavaliers, and I think it'd be fun if we could essentially get like a 2-7 or a 1-8 matchup with you guys. So we'll see how the season progresses with that.
You don't want that smoke,
Listen,
bro.
I want to
Oh,
buy.
you're right. You're absolutely right. But
You don't want
I'm
that
still
smoke.
going to talk like, we're going to sweep you guys. So
These aren't the Browns.
I would love a first round bye in the playoffs if we can get it. That'd be great. But anything, Bill?
No, I'm good. I mean, it's gonna be a great weekend. So I mean, football, UFC, and go from there. It should be fun. Can't wait.
Can't wait.
Hope Mike feels better.
We got so many big things coming. So many big things coming in the Wire2Wire family. Just keep up. We have grown so much, and thank you guys so much for all your listeners, all your shares, all your support. 53 sales in the first day of ordering, which will be getting you to merchandise as fast as possible. As for now, this is week 15, Wire2Wire. We're signing out.